The alarm bells of Nexus Station rang out 3 times, which meant something bad was coming. Captain Laura Hayes heard them while she drank her morning coffee in the diplomat's lounge. The coffee was cold and bitter, and the bells made it taste worse. She set the cup down on the table and waited like everyone else. Within minutes, the station commander sent word that the Dragon family had arrived. Not invited, not announced. They had simply come. Laura felt her heart beat faster, but she kept her face calm. Around her, other diplomats started whispering. The ambassador left his seat and walked to the window. He did not speak, but his body language told the story. Fear. The Dragon family was not new to the galaxy. They had existed for so long that most species did not remember the last time they had seen them. They came from the far edge of known space, from a sector that other species had learned to avoid. Stories about them were old and dark. Ships that went near their territory did not come back. Planets that caught their attention disappeared from navigation charts. The Dragon family did not negotiate. The Dragon family did not compromise. The Dragon family simply took what they wanted, and everyone else got out of the way. Laura moved to the window and looked out at the ships. There were 3 of them, and they were enormous. They seemed to bend the light around them as if reality itself did not know how to handle their presence. The hulls were not like other ships. They looked alive. They looked like scales. She had studied the reports and the old files, but seeing them with her own eyes was different. These were not machines made by beings. These were the beings themselves. Vex arrived first. He was a crystalline entity from the mining collective, and his form made sharp clicking sounds as he moved. He came to stand next to Laura at the window. For a long time he said nothing. Then he spoke in his high, brittle voice. "We must withdraw," he said. "The Council will vote to remove all claims to the disputed territories. We will leave peacefully." Laura turned to look at him. His form reflected the light in 1,000 directions. "Without hearing what they want." "We know what they want," Vex said. "They want us gone. Humanity's role here is to agree with them and leave." Before Laura could answer, Ambassador entered the room. He was in being, with a body that moved in ways that should not have been possible. His compound eyes clicked and focused. He had come from the diplomatic chamber where the Dragon family had sent their demands. "The Council is finished," said. His voice was low and carried no hope. "They want the corridor, all of it, every station, every colony, every trade outpost. They claim it is theirs by ancient right. In 1 hour they will attack anything that remains." Other diplomats began to move. They were gathering their things. The crystalline ambassador was already leaving. The representatives from the gas giant civilization were closing their communication channels. One by one, species that had claimed to care about the balance of power in the galaxy were choosing survival over conflict. Laura sat down at the table. Her hands were steady. She looked at and then at Vex. "And what does humanity's government say?" she asked. "Your government has no authority here," Vex said. "You are one captain in a minor diplomatic position. No one expects you to challenge the Dragon family." That was true. Laura was not important. She was not famous or powerful. She had come to Nexus Station because it was a good posting, not because she was essential to human interests. But she had read the histories. She had studied the old records, and she knew something that the other species in this room did not. She stood up and walked to the communication terminal. Her fingers moved across the keys. Behind her, she heard make a sound of alarm. "What are you doing?" they asked. "I am requesting a private audience with the Dragon family," Laura said. "One diplomat, no guards, no weapons." Vex made a sharp cutting sound. "You will die, and you will die alone." Laura looked at both of them. "Then I will die knowing I tried to do the right thing. That is more than the rest of you can say." She sent the message before anyone could stop her. The response came within seconds. The Dragon family accepted the request. One human was interesting to them. One human was worth listening to. Laura went to her quarters and changed into her formal diplomatic uniform. The blue and white colors of Earth seemed small and fragile as she looked at herself in the mirror. Outside her window, the 3 Dragon ships hung in space like a death sentence. She had studied their kind long enough to know that they could destroy this entire station without slowing down. They could do it without weapons. They could simply move their ships, and the radiation and gravitational distortion would tear everything apart. But she also knew something else. She knew from the old records that the Dragon family had not always been this way. Centuries ago, before they had made agreements. They had honored treaties. They had been part of the greater galactic community. Something had changed them. Something had broken that changed them from partners to predators. Was waiting for her in the corridor. He was her security officer and her friend. He was a big man with a face and eyes that missed nothing. When he saw her walking toward the docking bay, he fell into step beside her. "You are going," he said. It was not a question. "Yes," Laura said. "You will die," said. It was also not a question. "Probably," Laura said. "But if I do not try, we have already lost, and I did not become a diplomat to accept loss without a fight." Said nothing more, but when she reached the docking bay, he was still beside her. She did not ask him to come. She did not have to. He was already reaching for his coat. The small shuttle left Nexus Station and moved toward the largest of the three Dragon ships. Laura sat in the pilot's seat with her hands on the controls, sat behind her, silent and ready. Through the viewport, the Dragon ship grew larger and larger. It filled the entire window. It was so big that Laura could not see the edges of it anymore. The shuttle descended into a docking bay. The landing was gentle, despite what everyone had said about the docking bay of the Dragon ship was not what Laura expected. She had imagined something cruel and dark, full of weapons and sharp edges. Instead, the space was clean and ordered. The walls had a smooth quality that seemed almost organic. Light came from nowhere and everywhere at once. It was cold, but not painfully so. It was the temperature of deep space, the temperature where dragons lived. A figure emerged from the darkness. It was not a dragon. It was something else. A being with scales but walking upright. Its eyes were large and intelligent. It gestured with one arm, indicating that Laura and should follow. They walked for a long time through corridors that seemed to shift and change. The air smelled like ozone and something else, something old and ancient. Laura kept her breathing steady. She had trained for this moment her entire career, but no training ever prepared a person for the reality of standing inside a dragon ship. They came to a chamber that was enormous. The walls stretched up so far that Laura could not see the top, and at the center of the chamber was. The dragon family matriarch was not as large as Laura expected. She was only about 3 times the size of a human, but her presence made the entire chamber seem small. Her scales were dark like midnight, and they shimmered with colors that did not have names. Her eyes were ancient and deep, and they contained the weight of centuries. When she moved, it was with a grace that betrayed no effort at all. 2 other dragons were present. They were younger, their scales still bright with the colors of youth. Their eyes held the fire of warriors who had never been defeated. They were children, and they watched Laura with the same curiosity that a cat watches a mouse. Spoke without opening her mouth. Her voice came directly into Laura's mind, clear and perfect English, but with an accent that no human had ever produced. The sound of it made flinch, but he stayed in place. "Captain Laura Hayes said, you came alone." "I brought my security officer," Laura said. Her voice sounded small in the vast chamber, but she did not let it shake. "His name is, I did not expect to need protection from you, but it seemed disrespectful to come completely without accompaniment." Moved her great head in what might have been approval. "The others ran. Every species ran. Every government declared the corridor yours and retreated. No one fought. No one negotiated. No one stood." "Until now," Laura said. "Until now," agreed. "But you are only a human. You have no weapons that could harm me. You have no army. You have no power. Why do you stand?" Laura had prepared for this question during the journey from Nexus Station. She had thought about what she wanted to say. But now, facing the ancient eyes of the dragon family matriarch, she found that the right words came naturally. "Because honoring your claims is the right thing to do," Laura said. "Not because I fear you, not because I want something from you, but because what you have said deserves to be heard." One of the younger dragons made a sound that was almost laughter. It was not a kind sound, but raised one clawed hand, and the young dragon fell silent. "Explain," said. So Laura told her. She told about the ancient records that showed the accords. She told her about the promise made between the dragon family and the old human civilization that had flourished in that region centuries ago. She told that the promise had been broken, but she had come to help fix it. Was still for a long moment. Then she moved forward, and both and Laura felt the instinct to run. But they stayed in place, lowered her great head until her eyes were level with Laura's. The captain could see her own reflection in those eyes, small and fragile and terrified, but she held her ground. "You know what I could do?" asked. "I could destroy you. I could destroy your station. I could remove every trace of your kind from the corridor." "Yes," Laura said, "you could." Then why do you not run? Laura took a breath. This was the moment that would decide everything. She thought about standing behind her. She thought about the other diplomats on the station, watching and waiting. She thought about what it meant to be human in a galaxy that had largely forgotten what humanity was supposed to mean. Because I believe that the dragon family is not just a force of destruction, Laura said. I believe that you were once something more, and I believe that you still are something more. You could kill me. But killing me would prove everyone right, everyone who said that you were only monsters. I came here hoping that you would be something greater than that. The chamber fell silent. The young dragons watched, held his breath. And the great matriarch of the dragon family did something that no one in the galaxy expected. She backed away. She retreated to her place at the center of the chamber. And when she spoke again, her voice had changed. It was not softer, but it was different. It was the voice of someone who had just seen something they did not understand. You gambled, said. You came to my ship knowing you could die, believing that I had a nature worth appealing to. That is not logic. That is not strategy. What is that? That is hope, Laura said. It is belief in something better, even when the evidence does not support it. Was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke to the beings that had brought Laura to the chamber. Take the captain and her guard to the guest quarters. Give them food and water. We will speak again tomorrow. Laura and were escorted out of the chamber. As they walked, Laura felt her legs begin to shake. The fear that she had kept locked away during the conversation finally began to surface. Put a hand on her shoulder and they moved forward together in silence. The next morning, Laura woke in a room that was neither comfortable nor uncomfortable. The bed was soft, but it seemed to adjust to her body in ways that made her uneasy. The food that had been brought to her was nutritious, but tasted of nothing. She had slept, though her dreams were strange and filled with the colors of dragon scales. Was waiting for her when she emerged. He had not slept much. His eyes showed the strain of a night spent alert and worried, but he nodded to her and they prepared to face whatever the day would bring. Summoned them back to the great chamber. This time the dragon family matriarch was not alone. 5 other dragons were present, older and darker than the 2 Laura had seen before. These were the council of the dragon family. These were the ones who would decide what happened next. Spoke to Laura directly. I have thought about what you said about honor, about belief in something greater. These are concepts that my kind abandoned long ago. We learned that the galaxy did not care about honor. We learned that belief was a weakness, so we retreated and we have been alone for centuries. Laura listened and said nothing. But perhaps, continued, we were wrong. You came to my ship believing that I was more than a monster, that is either great courage or great foolishness. Before I decide what that makes you, I want you to see something. Projected an image into the chamber. It appeared in the air between them, clear and bright. It showed a planet beautiful and green with cities of crystal and water. The image shifted, and Laura saw the same planet burning. She saw cities collapsing. She saw the dragon family attacking, destroying, killing. This was Prime, said. 300 years ago, it was our home. We had built it over 10,000 years, but in one day it was destroyed. The image shifted again. It showed a treaty, written in a language Laura did not understand. But the signature was clear. It was the symbol of the dragon family, and next to it was the mark of the old human civilization. This was the accord, said. It promised us protection. It promised that if any attacked our worlds, they would face the combined strength of the human fleet. It promised us sanctuary. Another image appeared. This one showed the dragon family sending a request for help. Ships were attacking. Worlds were dying. The message went out to the humans, asking them to honor the accord. But no humans came. No fleet answered, no protection arrived. The humans did not come, said, and Laura could hear the pain in her voice despite the vast gulf between them. We sent 17 requests. We sent them with every faster-than-light communication we had. We promised them access to our technologies. We offered them everything we had, and they did not come. The old human government was dying. They were failing. They had other problems, and so they let us burn. The image shifted to Prime again. It was a dead world now, a circle of ash orbiting a dim star. After that, said, we learned that civilization was a lie. We learned that there was no honor, no loyalty, no promise that would not be broken when convenience demanded it. We became what you see now. We became predators instead of partners. Laura felt tears on her face. She had not known about this. The records on human stations talked about the dragon family's retreat, but they did not explain why. They did not explain the betrayal. "I am sorry," Laura said. The words seemed too small. "Your apology does not matter," one of the older dragons said. His voice was sharp and cutting. "The humans of your time are not the humans that failed us. Your apology is empty." But raised her claw again. "Wait," she said. She turned back to Laura. "I had you brought here because I wanted you to understand, but understanding should go both ways. I want to know something. I want to know why you came. Why did a human stand when all others ran?" Laura had spent the night thinking about this. She had prepared her answer carefully. "Because history does not have to repeat," she said. "The humans of 300 years ago failed you. That was real. That was a terrible betrayal. But humanity can choose to be different. I can choose to be different. I came here to say that the failure of my ancestors does not mean I will fail you too. I came here to say that we can start again." "How?" the old dragon asked. "Words mean nothing, promises mean nothing. We have heard them before." "Then we will not use just words," Laura said. She turned to face all of them. "I will go back to Nexus Station. I will gather every human official, every human government representative, every human with any power, and we will create a new accord, a real one, not written on paper that can be forgotten, but written into our laws, into our culture, into the very thing that makes us human. We will commit to honoring the dragon family, protecting your rights, and restoring what was lost." What? One of the younger dragons made that laughing sound again. "You will do this, one human." "Yes," Laura said, "because if I do not, then the rest of you will be right. You will be right that honor is dead. You will be right that the galaxy is only full of greed and betrayal. But I do not believe that, and I am willing to bet my life that I am right." Was silent for a long time. The other dragons waited, watching, listening. Finally spoke. "Very well, go back to your station. Gather your people, create your accords." The shuttle descended back into the Nexus station, and immediately alarms began to sound. Not the warning alarm this time, but the combat alarm. Something had gone wrong. Laura's heart hammered as she rushed to the communication console. The collective had decided to act. They had launched an assault on the corridor. They were not willing to give up the territory. More than that, they were not willing to let the dragon family win. A fleet of ships was attacking the ancient stations that the dragon family claimed were sacred grounds. Laura ran to the command center. Commander Helena Price was there, a tough woman with gray eyes and a jaw set like iron. She had taken command while Laura was gone. When she saw the captain, her face showed a mixture of relief and grim certainty. "They are moving," Helena said. "They have 3 battle cruisers in the corridor. They are not taking our calls. They are not willing to listen to reason." "Where are the dragons?" Laura asked. "Already moving," Helena said. "We have 3 of their combat ships heading toward the corridor at full speed. If they engage it will be a massacre. But worse, it will prove to the dragons that peace is impossible. It will prove that the galaxy wants war." Laura felt the weight of everything pressing down on her. She had promised that she could prevent this. She had promised that humanity would be different. And now, before she could even try, the old patterns were reasserting themselves. Other species were fighting over territory. Other species were choosing violence over trust. "Get me a direct communication line to the dragon family ships," Laura said, "and get me a channel to the fleet commander." Minutes later, she was sitting alone in a communication chamber with 2 live feeds in front of her. On the left was Commander Wretch, the leader. His compound eyes stared at her with pure calculation. On the right was herself, her great head filling the screen. "This ends," Laura said. She spoke to both of them. "This ends right now." "The dragon ships will be here in minutes," Wretch said. His voice was sharp and filled with confidence. "We will destroy them before they can reach us, and then we will control the corridor. Your little diplomat games do not change the fact that the strong will take what they want." "You think you can defeat the dragon family?" Laura asked. "We think we can wound them," Wretch said, "and that is all we need." Laura turned to, "And what do you think?" "I think that they are right," said. "I think that I can destroy them, and I think that if I do, every species in this galaxy will fear me and no one will ever trust me again. This is the test you spoke of. This is where I prove whether I am more than a destroyer." Laura's mind was racing. She had one chance to stop this, one moment to prove that there was another way. "Listen to me," she said. "Both of you, I am going to the combat zone. I am going to stand between your forces, and if you fire on each other, you will have to fire through me first." That will not stop us, Wretch said. No, Laura agreed. It will not stop you, but it will mean something. It will mean that you chose to kill a human who was trying to make peace. And in this galaxy, that means something. It means that the choice you make will be seen as conscious cruelty, not necessary force. She terminated the communication and turned to Helena. I need a shuttle, armed shuttles, move them between the dragon ships and the fleet. That is insane, Helena said. Yes, Laura said, but it is the only card I have left to play. Within minutes, Laura was in a small shuttle with beside her. Around them were 4 other human pilots, all volunteers, all understanding that they might die. They moved into the corridor at maximum speed. The space around them was chaos. Ships were moving into position. Dragon vessels were closing the distance. Weapons were powering up. The temperature in the human shuttles began to rise as energy weapons fired all around them. Laura positioned her shuttle directly in the path of the dragon ships. She opened a broadcast on all frequencies. This is Captain Laura Hayes of the human fleet, she said. Her voice was steady, but inside she was terrified. I am standing between these forces. If you want to fight, you will have to fight through humanity. You will have to kill me. And if you do, you will prove that the dragon family is just another predator. And you will prove that the collective is just another conqueror. I am asking you both to be more than that. The dragon ship slowed. The weapons powered down, not because they were afraid, but because they were curious. What was one human doing in the middle of a war that did not concern her? In the background, Helena had moved human battle cruisers into the corridor. They were not attacking anyone, but they were there. They were a statement. Humanity was choosing to stand with the peace, not with either side of the conflict. Wretch's voice came across the communication channel. You understand that we will take everything. You understand that by interfering, you have made yourself our enemy. Yes, Laura said. I understand, and I accept that. But I will not let you prove that peace is impossible without trying everything I have. There was a moment of absolute silence. Then's voice filled the channel. It was calm and clear. Stand down, she said to her fleet. Do not fire. They will attack us, one of the younger dragons protested. They will not, said, because they are afraid of what it means if they do, and fear more than weapons, more than power, is what keeps the strong in check. Wretch did not stand down immediately. But after several minutes, the ships began to 3 months had passed since the signing of the new accord. The Galactic Council chambers at Nexus Station were full again, but this time the mood was different. There was tension, but it was the tension of something being built, not something being destroyed. Laura stood at the podium and looked at the representatives from every major species in the galaxy. The accord lay on the central table, translated into 63 different languages. It was real. It existed. And it was binding. The corridor was now declared a protected zone under joint human and dragon family oversight. Other species could use the space for trade and passage, but the sacred sites of the dragon family would be off limits. Mining operations that had been destroying ancient dragon family burial grounds were shut down. Settlements that had been disrespecting holy territories were being relocated. And most importantly, the accord included enforcement mechanisms. If any species broke their agreement, the penalty was not just diplomatic sanctions. It was financial consequences, trade restrictions, and exile from the established galactic commerce network. It was written in a way that made breaking the accord too expensive to even consider. Vex made a statement about how the Crystalline Collective accepted the terms. Ambassador spoke for the swarms, though his voice was tight with anger. One by one, the representatives agreed. Not because they wanted to, but because Laura had been clear about one thing: humanity would enforce the accord. It would cost humans resources and strength, but they would do it. Because keeping promises mattered to humanity in a way that it did not seem to matter to anyone else. The faction that had triggered the conflict in the corridor was not destroyed. That had been Laura's decision, and it had caused debate within the dragon family themselves. The younger dragons wanted blood and vengeance, but had listened to Laura's argument, and she had agreed not to pursue extermination. Instead, the leaders were brought before a galactic court. They were found guilty of attempting to provoke war, of attacking peaceful mediators, and of violating trade agreements. Their punishment was substantial. They lost their rights to trade in the corridor. They paid heavy fines. Their species would be watched by human observers for the next decade. But they lived. After the council session, Laura was summoned to a private chamber, was waiting there, along with 2 of the younger dragons. They were no longer showing the hostility that Laura had seen before. They had learned something, and change was visible in how they carried themselves. "You kept your promise," said. "It was not a question." "I did," Laura said, "and humanity will continue to keep it. Every year we will send representatives to the corridor. We will monitor the accords. We will make sure that they are followed." "Why?" one of the young dragons asked. Its voice was sharp with curiosity. "This costs you resources, it costs you time, you gain nothing." Laura considered the question carefully. It was important that they understand. It was important that they knew why humanity was willing to do this. "Because honor is not about gain," Laura said. "Because keeping your word is not about profit. In your time alone, in your centuries of isolation, you may have forgotten this. But humans have not had thousands of years to forget. We are still young enough to remember that some things matter more than advantage." Moved closer to Laura. The great matriarch was massive and powerful, but there was something almost gentle in the way she approached. "In the old days, before the betrayal," said, "there was a human philosopher named. He wrote that courage was not the absence of fear. It was action despite fear. He wrote that honor was not a weakness but a strength, because only creatures with strength could afford to keep their promises." Laura felt tears forming. She did not know this philosopher. The records did not mention him, but somehow was reaching back through 300 years of rage and isolation to find something that connected them. "We will walk through the corridor with you," continued. "We will show you our worlds. We will teach humanity what we have lost and what we have found again, because perhaps the galaxy needs to remember that there are things worth fighting for besides power." 3 weeks later, Laura stood within the newly established Dragon Family Cultural Sanctuary on Nexus Station. The walls displayed images from dragon history. There were records of great civilizations, of art and music and science that had been lost. There were also records of the betrayal, preserved not as a weapon, but as a reminder of what happened when promises were broken. Watched from a distance, the great matriarch would not fully trust humanity for a long time, perhaps never, but trust was beginning. It was fragile and delicate, like a plant growing in harsh soil. A young dragon approached Laura. This was one of his children, the one who had laughed when humans first came. But there was no laughter now. There was curiosity and something that might have been respect. "My mother says that humanity has something we lost," the young dragon said. "She says that you have something that even power cannot give you. She says you are teaching us that courage is not just about strength in battle, but strength to choose what is right when it costs you." Laura nodded. She did not know how to answer such a statement, but she understood what it meant. She understood that in standing fearless against the dragon family, she had not conquered them. She had simply reminded them of who they were supposed to be. Outside the sanctuary, the corridor continued its work. Trade vessels moved through the protected space. Mining operations continued in the allowed zones. Life went on, but it went on differently now. It went on with the understanding that some promises mattered, some commitments were sacred, and in a galaxy full of ancient species with vast power, it was humanity, the youngest and most fragile, that had reminded everyone what these things meant. The story would spread through the galaxy. Other species would hear about the captain who stood fearless before the dragon family. They would hear about how one human had changed the course of conflict simply by refusing to run, by refusing to accept that honor was dead. And in future centuries, when young diplomats studied the history of how the dragon family returned to the galactic community, they would learn that it took only one human, willing to stand alone, to prove that the galaxy was still worth saving. Move backward, away from the corridor. The commander understood that he had been outmaneuvered, not by force, but by something more subtle. He had been beaten by a human's willingness to stand in the way of his own victory. As Laura's shuttle moved back toward Nexus Station, she felt put a hand on her shoulder. She had done it. She had stopped the war without firing a single shot. But the real test was still ahead. She had 30 days to create an accord that would hold, and if she failed, everything would start again, and this time there would be no stopping it. "We will give you 30 days. If you do this, we will meet again. If you fail, we will take the corridor, and we will do to the rest of the galaxy what was done to us. We will make them understand what it means to break a promise." Laura nodded. "I will not fail you," she said. As she left the dragon ship, she believed those words with everything she had. Behind them, on the dragon vessel, watched the humans go. And for the first time in 300 years, the dragon family matriarch allowed herself to feel something that was not rage or despair. She allowed herself to feel hope. Behind them, in the great chamber, sat alone with her thoughts. For the first time in centuries, the dragon family matriarch was wondering if perhaps the galaxy still had something worth saving. Being violent and cruel, when the airlock opened, Laura took a deep breath and stepped forward. Whatever was going to happen would happen now. She was out of time for second thoughts. Behind her followed. They walked together into the unknown, two humans walking toward the creatures that had made the entire galaxy step back in fear.